I'm back. That's good. We're going to go straight through to Geoff and have a chat with Geoff. Geoff, technically, how do you see things this week?
Yeah, look, like scrambled eggs, mate, to be honest. I think the currency pairs are just ridiculous. There's no direction that I can see that's going to get me absolutely interested for the next 2 or 3 days. I think they're just an absolute garbage junk mess. And like I said to you before, the only thing I had on my watch list was Aussie CAD. And of course, I'm in the opposite direction from a technical perspective than what the COT data is saying. And that's fine, as you said before. Both could be right. I'll share screen and show you what I am looking at, however. I'm more interested, frankly, in the indices than I am in currencies, but we'll have a little chat about that too as we go through. The screen I want to show is, or first up, is the dollar index. And you know what I think about the dollar, and sometime in the near future, well, the future, it's going to be worth Jack SH1T. But currently, it's obviously on a tear. The interesting part about that tear is that it's come to a level that it hasn't been to since the turn of the century. And that is this one here, which is about 109, whatever it is, 109.50. But it's really shot through the most recent highs that go back to, 2014-15, which is, of course, post-global economic crisis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and pandemic, all the rest of it, look at that, it's just straight up. It's like a skyrocket. And anything that goes up like a skyrocket, in my humble opinion, has to stop at some stage. And I figured that's a monthly chart. I figured this was a fairly decent place for the dollar to actually have a bit of a rest. It could well be that we've hit a double top here at around about the 109, whatever it is, level, 109.30 or something. And we've started to peel off that. But as we know, the result of Friday was a very, very strong reaction. Okay, it was a guttural gyration, as I call it. And it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens in the week ahead, to see if that guttural gyration turns into a considered opinion of the market. And if it goes through here, which I sincerely doubt, but if it does go through this level, whoa, what happens next? Very, very different scenario. And that's why I'm going back to the indices, and I'll get there in a sec. Gold, S&P 500, all of those things that, well, everything's going to be considered around what happens here, in my humble opinion. If this goes through this level, we're going to see a whole momentum change. Well, it won't actually be based on the trend that we've seen, but we're going to see a whole different thought process, in my humble opinion, because this is a very, very, as I said, turn of the century, strong high. If it goes through here, I think the whole market's going to go, holy dooly, why? Why is this actually happening? Why is the dollar so strong when we've got things like India, China, all of these countries thinking, okay, we don't want the dollar anymore as a reserve currency. Why is it so strong? And there'll be reasons for that, of course. But if it's no longer a reserve currency, then it disappears. Anyway, I'm not the person to talk about that. This is a technical situation right now. And all I see right here is a double top. And if this double top is confirmed by a low high, then buy US dollar. So we're down into the 90s, by my reckoning, in the not too distant future. Okay, it'll take a little bit of a time, but ultimately we're back down to here, because if symmetry plays any part of this, which I believe ultimately in, when I look for a reversal, I'm looking for a full reversal, so a cycle change. It'll come to here and it'll go back to here and it'll come back to here and it'll go back to here, but eventually it'll get down to 94 cents or whatever the case may be, around here somewhere. So that's what I'm focused on. What that does for things like the euro, the pound, is a very, very different story because they're very, very weak at the moment. But if you look at things like the CAD and the Aussie, and to some degree the Kiwi is weak. You can tell me why that is at the moment, if you like. But Aussie CAD, at the end of the day, versus the dollar, I think are fantastic conveyances to have. And that's why Aussie CAD, for me, is very, very interesting, because it's not related to the US dollar. They're both risk-on currencies, and one's related more to oil than the other. And that's why oil comes into play here. And if oil can't get through this level, which is 96.40, and I'll go a little bit stronger than that, this looks to be on a down cycle to me. And it's hit resistance again. So oil will play a big part in what the Canadian dollar does, in my humble opinion, and it won't be as effective against the Aussie. Therefore, I think this break of the weekly pivot last week, and let's get back to technicals, and the retest of that gives me the opportunity to say, if I'm right in terms of a directional bias, then a buy here makes perfect sense. Sellers have come in. If they fail, if they're right, they'll continue to sell here and I won't be taken into that trade. But if they're absolutely not right, and as I said to Ash, this looks to me like a failed re-entry into that candle, which was extremely bullish engulfing candle at a strong level. It's come off the monthly pivot, it's come off the daily pivot, it's come off the weekly pivot. This retest to me is absolutely crucial. And if price comes back to here, it's going. It's not staying anywhere near here. It's a big break of that level. So I think that, to me, for Aussie CAD, that's a strong level that we've come off. Looks like a false break to me. So to my mind, if this goes back above this level, it's going back to here. So that's where the Aussie CAD bit comes from. Let's go back to one other thing. And when I start my analysis of the week, it begins with looking through every single currency pair and seeing if there's something that I call a game changer bar, which is the key reversal bar. At the end of the day, the only one, which is extremely unusual, the only one that came up was euro pound. And for the second week in a row, I think it is, we've got a game changer bar to the upside. Maybe it's the third week. Game changer bar to the upside here, game changer bar to the upside here, and now we've got an inside bar. That's called a game changer plus in my language, which means that this directional candle, which is a key reversal bar, has been answered by an inside bar. That inside bar is telling me that this one hasn't been disproven, and therefore entry there or even there makes sense to me, trading it long. Do I want to trade that right now? Pound versus, or euro versus the pound, they're both, it's like a race to the bottom, frankly, at the end of the day. But clearly we've had one break, two breaks, both misproven. This one's closed again above the monthly pivot. I think that's reasonable to, I wouldn't say assume, but consider a long at that point. Am I going to trade it as a result of that reversal bar? The answer is no. But if I saw something that agrees with that on a smaller time frame during the week, then absolutely. It's giving me a directional bias. So if I see something that agrees with going long here, then I would. At the moment, there's nothing there to trade. And I think over all the currencies, as I said before, I think they're an absolute mess right now. They're either failing to break out, they're either in the middle of nowhere. They're all the Aussie pairs, even the CAD pairs, which I believe in strongly. I think the CAD's a wonderful, wonderful currency. I think it's the best on the board. And if you can get hold of it, happy days, do so against just about anything else, in particular the CAD, the euro, the weakest currencies that you can find. It draws me back, as I said from the outset, to these things. And in Trading Buddies during the week, we were absolutely desperate for a pullback on things like the Aussie 200, every single index that we came across. All we were looking for was a pullback to something that made sense. Unfortunately, what happened was we had to wait for the Powell speech, if you like. And what happened was just an absolute mess. Even if you got into a short, which I did, and I chose gold to do this, the whipsaw effect of Powell's speech meant that you had to have an extremely wide stop loss to keep you into the trade. I'll take you to that gold position that I took on Thursday, which was shorting gold. Why can't I see it? That should be an entry here somewhere. Underneath this, oh, there it is, underneath this bar. And I woke up on Saturday morning and I thought, oh, this is good. This is handy. Unfortunately, what I'd done before I went to bed was, because I saw on the smaller time frames, two great bars that took me in. It must have been on the hourly. It was Friday night after all. Yes, here. So I saw entry here and follow on. Okay, I'm going to put my stops to entry so I can go to bed and have a nice sleep. Unfortunately, the whipsaw took me out. Otherwise, that was exactly what we've been looking for in trading buddies throughout the week. Great technical scenario there, and I think that's where I'd rather be, quite frankly, right now in the indices. Silver's the same, S&P 500's the same, but you couldn't get into those trades and put your stop loss in a great place because of that whipsaw. It was just too hard to do. End of day, what do I see? From a technical perspective, everything that we were looking at last week in trading buddies seems to be happening. The problem is now we've got bars that are way too big. We need to see pullbacks on that. And then I think the directional bias is absolutely on point. Mate, currencies, seriously, I can't see anything that I like outside of Aussie CAD. And if Aussie CAD can get through that high, as I said, it looks fantastic to me for a long. And I know, as we've just discussed, that there's an absolute opposite, maybe equal even, perspective to take. But to me, this level here is so strong. We've got back above it. We've retested it. Entry there makes sense.
Right, Geoff and Ash, thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for coming in, and to everyone in the room who's here to watch today. Thanks for joining us. I do apologise for the fact that Gordon Scott hasn't been in. It's very out of character for Gordon. He confirmed a few hours ago, but he hasn't arrived. So we will put him off. Hopefully we'll get him back in the next couple of weeks. I know he is Dolly and long, so I'm interested there. I would like to have heard from him why. And that is in response to the speech on Friday at Jackson Hole. More details, I'm afraid I can't share. That's what he told me when we spoke a few hours ago. Do apologise for not being here. Very grateful to Ash and Geoff for being here, and to all of you guys for listening. We will move this over to YouTube. If you want to watch recordings later on, you'll be able to see this on YouTube in about an hour or so. If you're in the Mars Capital Inquiry Group, you need to jump into a meeting with me in 3 minutes or 33 minutes, depending on which one. Please check your email. In the meantime, everyone, nice to see you. Have a great Sunday evening. Take care. Do your planning. Stay calm. Plan out your week and then follow your plan for the week. That's what good traders do. Thanks, Ash. Thanks, Geoff. See you guys. Bye.